Hello and welcome to CDW's Tech Talks. This is the podcast where we dig into technology trends and practical insights that shape how organizations use technology to solve real business problems. I'm your host for today's episode, KJ Burke, Field CTO for Hybrid Infrastructure at CDW Canada. Each episode, we're going to break down a topic in the world of business IT. We're going to show you how to leverage those concepts in your organization. So stick around until the end of the episode for our tech tip of the week, a simple, actionable takeaway you can add to your ever-changing mental model. So today we want to talk about really going beyond the hype and building your AI pipeline, really looking at different use cases, evaluating use cases, and a bit of a cheat sheet on how you can look at those use cases and identify ways in which you can compare them, build a pipeline of prioritization where you're focusing on the right projects first, and not biting off too much to chew from the get-go, or maybe starting with things that don't have any impact and therefore sort of losing momentum that way. So let's talk a little bit about one of the big problems. And that big problem is, why do most AI projects fail? Or why is there a perception that most AI projects fail? Because what we find is a lot of times AI projects are delivering on the value that was proposed, but sometimes the measurements that are being used are not aligning with what the business was really expecting and hoping for. So one of the ways that we can do this is we can use a use case evaluation scorecard. We can create a way of really measuring the delivery of the value. And part of that is moving away from sort of an ROI perspective. If we look at return on investment, one of the challenges we have with that is because so much of what AI tooling is going to do for you is really helping increase productivity. Sometimes it's very difficult to quantify that. So if you go into your AI project and you're saying, we're going to generate X amount of additional revenue, or we're going to eliminate X amount of spend, and really the AI tool is taking away fractions of time to do a task. It's automating the way in which those tasks are being done so they're more efficient. You might not see that in a direct ROI. And one of the ways in which to measure that really resonated with me is a proof of productivity. So looking at the AI tool and the productivity gained and looking at the number of times you do those tasks and then evaluating that and really communicating that to the business so they understand that that is really, the goal. And as we develop that pipeline, what we really want to do is create a methodology where we can compare different use cases, because these are going to be coming at us from all different sides of the organization. It's really important that nobody has an important project backburner, but they understand where in the queue they are. And so if we can move to sort of a single sustainable pipeline of AI that we're developing, we can communicate with the stakeholders where they are in that line and why they are in that space in the line, then it can really help us prioritize and give people in our organization the feeling that they're not being left behind. They're in the queue, and there's a methodology and a means of how we're going to approach that. So when we look at this, we want to look at what's the anatomy of a good use case. And the first thing I want to talk about is really business value. So, why is this application, why is this tool going to drive business value? And is that going to have a direct financial impact? Is that going to, have a strategic alignment with how we're trying to service our customers? Is that going to give us a competitive edge? And how closely to our unique differentiation for our customers is the tool? And so sometimes the closer we get to what really defines our organization as being special, and optimizing that can have a multiplication effect on the positive impact it brings to our instant customers and growing that business. The second is really a bit of a reality check. So we're saying the second mechanism that we, part of our methodology that we want to score is really around, well, how ready are we? So what is our data preparedness? Have we gone through the process of data governance? Have we gone through the process of data curation? Have we really dug into the complexities and the risk associated with that data? And is the data in a state that we can use it? Is it in the location we can use it? If we're looking at building AI applications in the public cloud, but all of our data is locked up in a different location, then obviously there's maybe some infrastructure things that we have to take care of. Or there's some processing that we have to do on the back end. So, in addition to that, how well defined is our process? So, is the current process very ad hoc and bespoke? Is it something that only one person in the organization understands, or is it something that's very, very common? Is it something that's highly repeatable? Is it something that multiple people in the organization understand? Is it something of a documentation for? So sometimes it's we have these conversations with organizations that have maybe implemented large scale tools like ServiceNow, and they've gone through process mapping activities, or they're heavy users of tools like Jira or Confluence, and you have more of your processes really defined in a very solid way, where it's clearly understood across multiple lines of your business. Those again are processes that are ripe for AI automation, because you have a really good understanding, you have it across teams, and that's again part of the process is defining and taking what you already have, and then really superpowering it. Complexity versus creativity. AI is really going to help with repetitive tasks, and then allow your people to focus more on creativity. And so, trying to take parts of your value that you add to your internal users, and working together, or the value you add to your customers, replacing creativity is probably not where you want to start. What is the workflow impact? So if AI is really going to work behind the scenes, and not change the way that your people are doing their jobs, then that can really help. If you just sort of take the toil, you take the friction out of doing the job, that's the type of change that a lot of people in your organization can get behind and embrace. If it starts to come in and replace what they do, or it completely changes the way they do their job, again, those are larger organizational changes that make it harder to implement those tools. It may still be valuable to implement those tools, but the resistance from the organization and the change management that's needed to be successful can be much higher, and much more harder to kind of get everybody on board with. So, looking at data readiness, is the data available? Is the data quality? Garbage in, garbage out is one of those statements that we hear a lot, but it's even worse than that, because if you have a pretty good data set, and you start to inject bad data in there, it doesn't just mean that the models and the tools are going to have bad data available. It's actually going to take away from the good data that you have in there. So it's extra important that you have a good data curation process, and that you're ready to do that. Or alternatively, a lot of data sets can be used with something like retrieval augmented generation and RAG, where maybe we have a bunch of publicly available information, and that becomes very easy to segment that data. And so, maybe again, based upon sort of the scoring chart, you want to prioritize some of the applications and the tools that can leverage those already curated data sets. Maybe they're publicly available on your website. Maybe they're documentation that's readily available. Maybe they're parts catalogs. Maybe they're safety catalogs. Maybe they're material safety data sheets. Maybe they're just well-defined processes for your service desk, or your benefits, or your human resources department. So it's really about how ready is your data, and how consumable is your data in its current state. So section 3 is sort of that people factor. And I sort of alluded to this, but how ready is the organization? Are you trying to take AI tools into a line of business that maybe is uncomfortable, or maybe it's a huge leap to go through multiple different types of technologies to get them to the point where they are now able to take advantage of that AI tool? And that can be a challenge in and of itself, but also cultural buy-in. If you start to change people's roles, you start to change the job. You start to replace people. You start to really look at how are you affecting the jobs, and you can't get that cultural buy-in. You could build a great tool, and then nobody's willing to use it, or very few people are willing to use it. And again, your overall AI project can stall or can fail, again, because people just aren't willing to use the tools. Um, and then the budget truth, again, is there real money and real time? Is the business willing to commit resources to delivering on the tool? And if the business isn't willing to commit the resources, again, you're kind of trying to push a rock uphill. And so what we found in these conversations with customers is, can we get the line of business engaged and excited for the tool? Can we get the IT team ready to help deploy the platforming and the tooling that's required? Can we get the developers on board to help with the application development and the access to the data? Can we get the security team on board to help build the guardrails? And can we get the executive team on board to align the tools that you're building with their strategy so that these can be funded and they understand how you're going to measure success? Section 4 is really around like reading the matrix. It's building the roadmap, and it's taking these different points, and taking all of these different ideas for AI tools, scoring them, and then really aligning them in a pipeline of development. And this is great because it gives you priority. You can say, well, this is why we're doing this project first. We're going to start here. Here's the next one. Your project is number 3. And if the organization wants to move faster, then you can start to create multiple threads of these tool developments. But until you sort of get the first couple under your belt, business is probably going to hesitate with putting too many resources into that. So by creating a framework to evaluate these use cases, and then leveraging that framework to scorecard the use cases, and then creating this pipeline of development, you can also start to see, well, as you build these applications, when do you start to need more investment in your cloud resources? Or when do you start to need more operational budget to purchase gear for your data center? Or how do you look at the inferencing that's going to be needed for these, and start to, again, budget that? Because we as stewards of the business are also trying to plan out and communicate to the business, what do you need in your budget plans for next year? And so again, going through this process of identifying these use cases, getting the ideas from your line of business stakeholders, creating a pipeline of development, also helps you create that investment. So what we really want to do is focus on higher impact, lower complexity, data sets that are ready, and also where it doesn't change the job of the people that are going to be leveraging the tools, and they can be excited about the change they're going to see. So we sort of break these into high priority, longer term, low priority, and then we'll share the document that I've been referring to that'll kind of walk you through a bit of a scorecarding. I'd love to hear feedback on it because again, work with a lot of customers, really try and give them a starting point, but everybody's journey is a little bit different. So my tech tip of the week is really, take a look at the document that's going to be linked in this. Happy to hear feedback. You could drop a comment in the podcast. You could drop a comment in the YouTube channel, and feel free to reach out to your account managers if you want to talk more about it. But would really like to continue to build on some of these ideas and make sure that we're sharing and bringing some of that thought leadership. So thanks for joining me. Tech tip is to take a look at this, create a way to create a framework that you can start to evaluate these ideas that your business has in a very structured way, make it transparent, make people feel like they're part of the process. And as you build out that roadmap, understand that will help you build your investment planning, help you communicate with your leadership to do that. So thanks again for joining me on the podcast today, and be safe, and great to hear from you.